Lil Durk, a prominent figure in the Chicago rap scene, has captivated audiences with his raw storytelling and gritty lyrics. However, his rise to fame has been shadowed by legal troubles. Durk faces serious allegations, accused of orchestrating a murder-for-hire plot. The charges stem from a complex investigation. The prosecution claims Durk used his influence to orchestrate a hit. This case is about justice and accountability. The world watches, eager to understand the truth behind the allegations. Central to the prosecution's case is the testimony of an informant, a former affiliate of Lil Durk's own Only the Family (OTF) collective. This individual claims to possess first-hand knowledge of Durk's alleged involvement in the murder-for-hire plot, providing detailed accounts of conversations, meetings, and plans. The informant's testimony is explosive, directly implicating Durk in the crime. According to the informant, Durk was motivated by a long-standing feud with the victim. The informant alleges that Durk felt threatened and sought to eliminate his rival to protect himself and his empire. This testimony provides a motive for the alleged crime, adding weight to the prosecution's case. However, the informant's credibility is not without question. Is the informant seeking leniency in their own legal troubles? Or is their testimony driven by a genuine desire to see justice served? Adding another layer of complexity to the case is the corroborating testimony of another rapper who claims to have been present during conversations where Lil Durk allegedly discussed the murder-for-hire plot. This second rapper's testimony is significant because it provides an independent account that aligns with the OTF informant's claims. The rapper claims to have overheard Durk discussing the need to handle the victim using language that implied violence. While this testimony is not a smoking gun, it adds weight to the prosecution's argument that Durk was actively involved in planning the murder. The defense will likely scrutinize the relationship between the two rappers, attempting to discredit the corroborating testimony. They may argue that the second rapper has their own motivations for cooperating with the authorities. Beyond witness testimonies, the prosecution has presented financial records that they believe link Lil Durk to the alleged murder-for-hire plot. These records purportedly show suspicious transactions between Durk and individuals believed to be involved in the crime, including alleged payments made around the time of the murder. The prosecution argues that these financial transactions serve as a financial trail, connecting Durk to the individuals responsible for carrying out the hit. If true, this evidence could be crucial in establishing Durk's role in the alleged crime. Shortly after the murder, a significant sum of money was transferred from an account associated with Lil Durk to an account belonging to an individual with a known history of violence. The prosecution believes this transaction represents payment for the hit. However, the defense is likely to argue that these financial transactions are open to interpretation. They may claim that the payments were for legitimate business purposes or unrelated to the murder. The OTF informant's testimony forms a cornerstone of the case against Lil Durk. However, the reliability of this informant is a significant point of contention. The defense is likely to highlight inconsistencies in the informant's statements, previous instances of dishonesty, and potential biases that could be influencing their testimony. The defense will likely scrutinize the informant's criminal history, previous lies, and any deals made with the prosecution in exchange for their testimony. By highlighting these issues, the defense aims to cast doubt on the informant's credibility and, by extension, their entire testimony. The defense may also attempt to portray the informant as someone with a vendetta against Lil Durk. They could argue that the informant is fabricating or exaggerating their account to exact revenge or gain an advantage in their own legal troubles. Ultimately, the jury will have to weigh the informant's testimony against the defense's attempts to discredit them. Beyond the testimonies of the OTF informant and the corroborating rapper, the prosecution's case hinges on the existence of independent evidence that can corroborate their claims. This could include physical evidence linking Lil Durk to the crime scene, communication records that support the alleged planning of the murder, or other forms of tangible proof. The prosecution has suggested that they are pursuing additional evidence, including forensic analysis of phones and computers, to bolster their case. However, as of now, the majority of the evidence presented relies heavily on witness testimony. The defense will likely seize upon the lack of independent verification to argue that the case against Lil Durk is built on shaky ground. They will emphasize that without concrete evidence, the prosecution's case relies solely on the word of potentially unreliable witnesses. The absence of strong independent verification does not necessarily exonerate Lil Durk. The financial transactions presented by the prosecution are undoubtedly suspicious. However, proving that these transactions are directly linked to the alleged murder-for-hire plot is a complex task. The defense will likely argue that these transactions, while perhaps unconventional, were part of Lil Durk's legitimate business dealings or unrelated to the crime in question. The defense may call upon financial experts to analyze the transactions and provide alternative explanations for the movement of funds. They could argue that the payments were for music production, marketing, or other business expenses common in the music industry. The prosecution will need to establish a clear link between the financial transactions and the alleged murder-for-hire plot. Without a clear and convincing connection, the financial evidence, while suspicious, may not be sufficient to secure a conviction on its own. The jury will need to determine whether the prosecution has provided enough context to prove that these transactions were part of a criminal conspiracy. As the evidence against Lil Durk is presented and scrutinized, the question remains: how strong is the case against him? The prosecution has presented a narrative that paints Durk as the mastermind behind a murder-for-hire plot, relying heavily on witness testimony and financial records. However, the defense has effectively poked holes in the prosecution's case, highlighting inconsistencies, biases, and a lack of independent verification. The prosecution's case hinges on the credibility of the OTF informant and the corroborating rapper. If the jury believes their testimonies, it strengthens the prosecution's narrative. However, if the defense successfully discredits these witnesses, the foundation of the prosecution's case crumbles. The financial evidence, while suspicious, is not a smoking gun. The defense has provided plausible alternative explanations for the transactions, and without a clear link to the alleged murder-for-hire plot, the financial records alone may not be enough to secure a conviction. Ultimately, the strength of the case against Lil Durk rests on the jury's perception of the evidence and their assessment of the witnesses' credibility. While the trial has shed light on the allegations against Lil Durk, several unanswered questions remain. The prosecution's case, while compelling in its narrative, relies heavily on witness testimony that is subject to interpretation and potential bias. The financial evidence, though suspicious, lacks a clear and irrefutable link to the alleged murder-for-hire plot. One crucial question that remains unanswered is the motive. While the prosecution has suggested that the murder was motivated by a long-standing feud, the specifics of this rivalry and the extent to which it escalated remain unclear. Further investigation into the history between Lil Durk and the victim is necessary to fully understand the context of the alleged crime. Another area requiring further investigation is the alleged payment for the hit. A thorough investigation into the recipients of these funds and their potential involvement in the crime is crucial to determine the true nature of these transactions. The Lil Durk case is a stark reminder that the pursuit of justice requires a fair and thorough process. The presumption of innocence until proven guilty is a cornerstone of our legal system, and it is essential that this principle is upheld throughout the entirety of these proceedings. The prosecution bears the burden of proof, and it is their responsibility to present credible evidence that establishes Lil Durk's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense, in turn, has the right to challenge the prosecution's case, scrutinize the evidence, and present an alternative narrative. The jury, as impartial arbiters of justice, must carefully weigh the evidence presented, assess the credibility of the witnesses, and ultimately determine whether the prosecution has met its burden of proof. Their decision must be based solely on the facts of the case and the evidence presented at trial, free from any external influences or biases. The pursuit of justice is not about securing a conviction at any cost. The Lil Durk case presents a complex legal battle with conflicting accounts and questionable evidence. Engage critically with the evidence, scrutinize both narratives, and form your own opinions. What do you make of the OTF informant's testimony? Do you find their account credible, or do they have ulterior motives? How much weight do you give to the corroborating rapper's statement? Share your thoughts and engage in respectful debate.